There's a typhoon outside and I'm thinking about the end of the world. The end of the world is strangely popular. Just in this new century, it's been predicted twice. The first time was the year 2000, reason unknown. The second time was December 21st, 2012, when the Mayan calendar ended on the winter solstice. Every time there's a prediction of end time, many people are excited, even ecstatic, including those who are very afraid of personal death. I wonder why. In a flash fiction I wrote in 2012, before the world last ended, I suggested that life, no matter how good on the surface, is kind of like jail. Plagiarizing the Buddha, of course. Don't think he'll mind. But the prison analogy obviously begs the question why normal prisoners want out, whereas the average person is afraid of death. I think it's because normal prisoners were not born in jail. Try to imagine someone born and raised in a concentration camp and has never set foot outside. After 40, 50 years, the guards tell him that he can go tomorrow. Congratulations. What do you think he might feel? Scared? Desperate? Very possible. If he can find a chain, he might even chain himself to a fence, refusing to leave, hanging on to it like a life-supporting machine. However, if the main gates flung wide open and all the inmates are rushing out, he'll no doubt join the stampede, full of adrenaline, excited rather than scared. Many books and movies like to spice up the big end with a bit of sex and violence. A popular portrayal of the end of humanity involves everyone looting and raping as if it's something they've been wanting to do all their lives but never had the time to do it. Now that the end is near, well, I don't buy that pointlessly barbaric scenario. It might happen in some societies for a little while, but won't last long, because it can't. I think the opposite will happen. People will most likely live their lives as normal, and that's the setting of my novel Man's Last Song. Okay, you are asking, what's so interesting about everyone living life as normal, right? It can be very interesting, thought-provoking anyways, and not necessarily dystopian. End times in Man's Last Song happens gradually, like boiling frog over slow fire. Do you think people have really done that? Anyways, due to universal infertility, humanity ages relentlessly but remains overpopulated for decades. Meanwhile, for 8 or more billion people to survive, the only option is to maintain life and social structure as we've always known them for as long as possible. How else? There'll be no incentive to kill and rape at that stage, especially when most people are already kind of old, though not quite old enough to retire. But one day we'll pass that critical line when we can no longer generate electricity. Life will change dramatically. The world will become very big again, with isolated pockets of what I call postmodern savages. Our ancestors took many thousand years to progress from Stone Age to smartphones. Once power is permanently cut, the return journey will take no time. Meanwhile, the rest of the planet responds to the phasing out of humans. Darkness, something we've lost for a long time without even noticing, returns to the city at night. Dolphins leap across Victoria Harbour. Monkeys and dogs become wild again, struggling to find a position on the new food chain. People may even stop hating each other for no reason. Universal sterility is of course just fictional fantasy. But is it? Recently, a reader sent me a famous biology experiment back in 1968 called the mouse Utopia. You may Google and find out more. I've included a link in the descriptions. In short, a few pairs of mice were allowed to breed freely and happily in a designed utopia. Plenty of food, space, and no cats. Wonderful life, but after a few generations, they started to behave weird. More and more became unsocial, hiding in quiet corners, grooming themselves alone, not joining the endless cheese parties. Soon, they stopped reproducing altogether. Eventually, every single mouse died. The experiment ended in just 5 years, long before reaching designed capacity. Strangely, when the population dropped on the way to extinction, the mice never picked up their reproductive instinct again. But humans are different from mice, right? I imagine so, but how? Man and mouse are genetically not that different after all. I call Homo sapiens a self-endangered species. If it is, what have we done to endanger ourselves? And what have we got out of it? Most importantly, is it too late to save it from self-extinction?